Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we're changing the valve cover, oil cooler gasket, and oil filter housing gasket on a 4-cylinder 3 Series BMW. First you'll take the over covers off, then the weather stripping. It has a wire that runs through the front of it. Remove that wire. Pull the stripping off. Then you're going to pull these covers off for the left and right side. You have a pull tab there, and they have these little turn knobs here. They're 10mm. Then you remove those. Then you'll have these two bars here, and you'll see these two plugs in the center. They cover up the E18 bolts underneath. Grab your E18 socket and then remove all 4 bolts, 2 on the outside and 2 in the center. And then remove both bars out of your way, and then remove this back cover, which is going to have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 10mm bolts and 1 pull tab right there on that right, and then that will come out of your way. But now you'll have the space to work in the back. It will be a good idea to go ahead and blow dust and dirt and anything loose off of the valve cover before you remove the valve cover or any other piece, to keep dirt and contaminants from getting inside the motor. It's very good practice to make sure everything is nice and clean before opening your engine. On the back of the valve cover where the O2 sensor wiring clips, there will be this bolt here and 2 others for that plastic cover. You remove that plastic cover to get access to that rear bolt on the valve cover. Go ahead and remove all the coils to give you space that you're going to need when you remove this valve cover. Remove the fuel lines. Careful because it is under pressure. You can see how close it is to that coil there. So I just went ahead and removed them all. And this one line you see is free to move. It's not a stiff line, so you can just push it out of the way. The ejector lines are going to be a 14, and the rail hold downs are going to be an E8. Unclip the sensor in the back. This is the pressure sensor. And then unbolt the tie down for the eccentric shaft sensor and unplug it to push tabs on each side. And then unclip the harnesses out of your way and gently pry up on the rail, and the rail will come out of the car. Set the rail aside in a clean space. Next, remove the harness out of your way. You'll see that the goes all along the side. The clips can be removed, and then you can lay the harness aside like so. And this harness you can unclip and lay off to the back side. It will be out of the way. And then I unplugged one of the computer plugs and the eccentric shaft motor and set it aside. You don't have to, but I did unplug this and move it out of the way. Taped it up because it is a hot line. Laid it off to the right there, just for the sake of space. Tape it off because it is hot. Then it'd be a good idea also to cap your ejectors like I did, and this line to keep any dirt from getting in there. And then you can go ahead and remove your fuel pump, 2 T30s left and right. And then the PCV connection line in the front, remove it. Remove your cam actuators for the VVTs. These are E6 bolts. When you disconnect the PCV line, be sure to cover it up because it can be very easy for contaminants to get down in there. And then you can remove all the bolts holding down the valve cover. The eccentric shaft motor tie down is E6 as well. The valve cover will come up around it. In the back, you can use this wobble socket to get that corner one since it's kind of tough. And then once you have all of these bolts loose, there will be one more thing you have to do before you can remove the valve cover. And that's going to be the vacuum pump on the back was going to need to be removed. Now the vacuum pump is held on with 3 T30 bolts. You got one on the passenger side here. There's going to be one opposite of that right here below this vacuum connection. And then there's going to be one down bottom. The one down bottom is going to have a piece of harness in the way. You can see right there the harness going in front of the bolt. It has one of those grabber clips on there, so you're going to have to reach back there and wiggle that loose and pry that off where it is attached, and then you should be able to get your ratchet back in there to remove that bolt. It is a little tough, so you have to wiggle at it and kind of pry one end of it off, but it will eventually pop off. And then you can move that piece of harness. Sorry, it was kind of hard to take this shot. You can see you move it up and down, and then that will give you space to put your ratchet down in there to get to it. I found it easier to do both of these, well, really all 3 of these bolts going from the driver's side over. And then you can remove it like this, and be careful as you remove it so as not to spin that, as it's going to need to go back in the same way. Now that you have that off, your valve cover is free to be removed. This is the new one, L-ring part number 477540. I've used a lot of these for 6-cylinder and 4-cylinder. They are a good valve cover. I know some people don't like them for whatever reason, but honestly I've never had an issue out of them. You want to clean and dry up the surface all the way around. Make sure it's clean, dry, free of any debris. Be very careful to wipe away from the inside, not into it. Also be sure to transfer your wiring harness clips and your oil filter housing and your eccentric shaft motor hold down. Now onto the oil cooler and oil filter housing. Remove the air box and the air pipe, and you'll see that the oil cooler is held on by these 3E bolts, as well as the oil filter housing is held on by 3E bolts. One in the top left, one in the front here going the other direction, and then one is underneath the intake right there. You will have to unbolt the intake to get it out. There's not really any way around it. So go ahead and drain your coolant bottle till it is empty. When you do this, you will drain enough coolant out that it will not spill when you undo the pipes. So go ahead and remove the top one off the bottle, unplug the sensor, remove the lower hose to it, and remove your upper hoses, remove your radiator hoses. Once you drain that bottle, it should be plenty low enough that it doesn't drain. Then you can move on to your oil cooler, unbolting those 3 bolts. They are E12 bolts, and you want to have a rag under it, and this is why it will be a little messy even after you drain the oil filter out of it. Next, for the oil filter housing, you'll need an E10. It has 3 E10 bolts, one on the top, one down bottom. A little trick is to use a 8mm for that one. It will fit and break it loose. That one should come all the way out, and then you'll be left with the one underneath the intake, for which you're going to need to unbolt the ECU to move it out of the way to access that bolt in the middle. And I recommend using a magnet to make sure you don't drop any of these. Once you unbolt the intake and remove all the nuts, you'll have enough space, as you can see here, to fit your socket on it to remove the remaining oil filter housing bolt. It will leak some oil. Clean that surface up really good, and then remove your gasket, remove the oil filter cap with the oil filter. Clean this out really well. You want to make sure there's no dirt, no debris, no nothing in there, and make it look nice and clean, just like this. Then replace all your O-rings, replace your oil filter, and then it is time to install your new gaskets. Here are your gaskets, the one on the right for the oil cooler, the one on the left for the oil filter housing. It should look like this when installed. And then you are ready for reassembly. I recommend using a magnet to reinstall those intake bolts. Then you can reassemble anything. A quick tip is because you've had everything off and the oil has been drained, prime it using the oil fill into the filter. Also, if you're changing the belt at the same time, which I did, this is how the belt routing goes. And it is a 16mm for the tensioner. I use G48 coolant and Synergy 6100 5W30. Thanks for watching. I hope this helps. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and support if you want to.